U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Welcome to the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action weekly video podcast for September 25th, 2020. I'm your host, Phil Lempert. Today, we're going to talk about fertilizer and the important role that it plays in agriculture. Our guest is Mike Frank, Executive Vice President of Nutrien and CEO of Nutrien Ag Solutions. Mike is a global ag leader with more than 30 years of working extensively with farmers and other ag professionals around the world. And most important, Mike grew up on a farm in Canada. And a passionate agriculture advocate, Mike is focused on the issues of global food security and driving environmental and economic sustainability for farmers and the ag industry. He serves on the board of the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action. Mike, great to talk to you again. Welcome to Farm Food Facts.
Good morning, Phil. Great to be with you. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. So, Mike, tell me a bit more about Nutrien and its role in farming and ranching.
Sure. So, Phil, Nutrien is still a fairly new name in agriculture. We merged two companies back in January of 2018, Agrium and Potash Corporation, and that created this new company called Nutrien. So at Nutrien, we are a large fertilizer maker. In particular, we produce about 25 million tons of NPK fertilizer and sell that around the world. And in addition to that, we also operate a large network of ag retail locations, and that's the business that I run. So we have approximately 2,000 retail locations in 7 countries where we serve our farmer customers, selling them fertilizer, but also seeds and crop protection products, lots of services, including custom applications. So we work directly with farmers around the world. We serve over 500,000 farmers, again, in 7 countries. And so that's a very exciting part of our business as well.
So, Mike, talk to me about the retail environment, if you would, these days, because of the pandemic. Are you seeing that more people, are ordering online and you have to do what supermarkets are doing as far as, curbside pickup, or are they coming in the stores? What changes have you had to make as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, great question. So, 2020 has been a challenging year for our farmer customers, and we've had to adjust our operations to just make sure that we kept our employees and our customers safe. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. What happened with other consumer markets in terms of people going into stores, really, it's the same thing at our retail locations. And so, right out of the gate, we wanted to make sure we kept our employees safe, and so we had to set up our operations, and so they were all socially distanced and wearing masks when that couldn't happen. We encouraged customers to, if they wanted to come in and pick up, to let us know they were going to pick up product, and we had a touchless pickup service. And in our business, we do a lot of drop off and delivery as well, and so we set up a process where we could drop products at our customers' farms. And do that in a touchless way. And so our truck drivers and our customers stayed safe throughout the whole process.
Yeah. So, I know that there's a lot of questions about sustainability of fertilizer, from GHG emissions to runoff. As the largest fertilizer company in the world, how does Nutrien approach sustainability?
Yeah. So look, as your listeners would likely know, plant nutrients are incredibly important for healthy plants and ultimately healthy harvests. And so, replenishing the soils with both macro and micronutrients are critically important to feed the population, whether it's the 330 million people in the US or the 7.8 billion people around the world. And so it's a very important part of agriculture and a very important part of sustainable agriculture. Now, look, we really focus on what is often called the 4 R's, which is having the right source, the right rate, the right time, and the right place to apply that fertilizer. And so we spend a lot of time with our customers, making sure that they're selecting the right nutrients, often in customized blends. And so depending on the crop, depending on the soil, we do a lot of soil sampling to make sure we know exactly what needs to be replaced in the soil. Now, you asked about precision agriculture, and it's a really exciting field that continues to, I think, evolve every year with new and new tools. With a lot of our customers, we now look at their soil across the field. And so instead of going in and treating the field as a homogeneous field and getting the same rate across the field, we're now doing variable rate applications with most of our customers, where in the really heavy parts of their field where they can grow more crops, we'll probably put on a little bit heavier rates of fertilizer. And likewise, where they've got lighter soils and they aren't as productive, we will put on less fertilizer because that's exactly what the plants need to optimize the sustainability side of fertilizers. But when we think about sustainability, I mean, it's obviously on the fertilizer side, but it starts with the whole system. So it includes no-till or minimum till farming. It includes cover crops. And so we really think in terms of like, what's the system and how can we help our customers, because they all want to be sustainable? How can we help them maximize their sustainability outcomes?
So, Mike, in talking to a lot of farmers, I'm fascinated how far, both in the case of fertilizer and technology, has come, where they're sharing with me that if they can fertilize a square inch, if you would, of their field, if that's what they need to do, they've got that technology now to do those kinds of things. So as we look to the future, and technology and fertilizer and crops, what do you see happening?
Yeah, so you talk about kind of farming square inch by square inch, and that's that variable rate technology I talk about, which combines, soil sampling, so going in and actually sampling a cross section of the field, but then also using satellite data to really see, okay, over the past several years, how did the crop grow, and where did it yield more and where did it yield less in the field? There's other really exciting technologies. For example, we have a product that's called ESN nitrogen, and it's a polymer coated nitrogen that releases over time. And so, for a healthy plant, it needs nitrogen throughout the growing season. With ESN nitrogen, it releases over a 50 to 80-day period.
Wow.
And if it's really wet, it slows its release. If it's really dry, it slows its release. And so it's really designed to really release over the growing season. So that's incredibly exciting, and that's part of our sustainability offerings that we're working with our customers on. There's also a lot of biological products, and there's a lot of science going into really understanding like what's happening below the surface and around that root and the microbiome. And so sometimes we talk about a healthy gut bacteria. It's really the same for plants. They need a healthy root system and the right bacteria. And so we now have products like microbial products that we'll put on either with at the time of planting or with fertilizer that creates an environment so the roots are even more efficient at absorbing the fertilizers that are and nutrients that are around them. And so these are the emerging fields that I think are incredibly exciting, and they help farmers again create more sustainable harvests.
Who knew that there was gut health for plants? Um, so,
Exactly.
I know that you just published your latest ESG report. Um, what's in it? What does it mean? What changes can be implemented? How does it benefit farmers?
Yeah, so for your listeners that may not know what ESG means, it really stands for environmental, social, and governance. And so it's an acronym that a lot of companies uh, are working with. And so ESG is really about being really transparent with your stakeholders in terms of how you're becoming more sustainable as a company and how you're working downstream with your customers to help them achieve sustainability outcomes as well. And so it accumulates into a report that we publish every year. And again, stakeholders that are interested in agriculture, including our investors, are very interested in what we're doing. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us as a company, at least, to really showcase the exciting things that we're doing across our business in our operations to become more sustainable, focusing on greenhouse gases, focusing on water efficiency. But then again, since we work directly with so many farmers, that's also a big part of our story in terms of the work we're doing directly with them. Look, I think, Phil, what's happening is a lot of companies are making commitments around greenhouse gas emissions. And what we can see happening is there's a market that's forming where agriculture can be a solution to sequester carbon. And so again, some of the practices like no-till and cover crops, growing really strong and healthy crops, that all sequesters carbon. And so we think, farmers and agriculture is part of this solution around climate change and sustainability. And what we think is going to happen over time, and it's just starting to happen, is farmers can get rewarded for practicing those environmentally sustainable practices. And so we're working with them directly. We have a number of pilot projects where we are working with our customers to measure the greenhouse gas sequestration across each of their fields, their water efficiency, and then we're working with some of the food companies that are very interested in buying grains from these companies that are actually achieving those results.
So, I know you're not going to tell me, but you mentioned pilot projects. What are some of the pilot projects that are going on that you can share, and what has you the most excited?
Yeah. So look, since this whole area I think, is emerging, and I think in 4 or 5 years, this is going to become a marketplace where farmers can really participate and get rewarded. So we're working with, again, in a number of areas, whether it be the Chesapeake Bay area. We're working with the governor in Ohio around the water systems there. We're working in Alberta with the oil and gas industry. And so there's a lot of different partnerships that we think can emerge in this space where farmers, when they practice most environmentally sustainable practices, which includes, again, being very productive. And so driving high yields is a big part of this, and being economically sustainable, but then measuring the greenhouse gas and the water efficiency. And so again, things like ESN nitrogen, that actually helps reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Putting on the microbials, making sure that farmers are thinking about their tillage practices. And so all of these things are being monitored and recorded. And there's a number of emerging kind of third-party measurement tools. And so this isn't us saying what we think is happening in the field. We're working with Colorado State University and other developers of tools and technologies that are available to really scientifically measure what's happening in the field. And so, again, I think it's early days. That's why we have a number of pilots in 2020, but I think these are going to scale up into the future.
So, Mike, I know you a long time, and I know you've got a crystal ball. So, look, beyond 2020, beyond 2021, talk to me about where agriculture, where fertilizer, all the things that we've talked about, where are we going to be in 5 years from now?
Yeah. Look, I think what's really important in this conversation is we need to do two things. We need to farm as sustainable as we can and grow livestock as sustainably as we can, and we need to feed a growing planet. So the two go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And I think in the past there's been focus on one or focus on the other, and I think this needs to come together. And this is why USFRA, I think, plays such an important role, because it's easy for us in agriculture to talk amongst the industry and talk with ourselves and convince ourselves what we're doing makes sense. USFRA is connecting the dots with stakeholders inside and outside of agriculture, including NGOs and government bodies. And I think, over the next 4 or 5 years, coming together and bringing together people that have the same objectives, sharing information, sharing best practices, and ultimately solving these problems cooperatively together. I think that's where this goes. So it's not going to be like you're doing something wrong. It's like who are practicing the best practices, and how do we feed a growing planet, and how do we do it sustainably? Let's help farmers maximize their efficiency and their yields. That will prevent new agricultural land from having to come online. And again, that's part of the sustainability need that we have as a planet.
Mike, as always, brilliant. Thanks for joining us today on Farm Food Facts.
Wonderful. Good to be with you, Phil. Thanks.
U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Our movement sponsors, United Soybean Board and National Pork Board. Our presenting sponsors, Wells Fargo and Cargill. Our gold sponsors, Bayer, Dairy West, Nebraska Soybean Board, McDonald's, Nutrien, and the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research. Our bronze sponsors, Purina and Ernst & Young. Our youth sponsor, Ruan. And our donor sponsor, Tyson. For more information on all things food and agriculture, please visit us at usfarmersandranchers.org. Also be sure to look out for us on Facebook at US Farmers and Ranchers and on Twitter at USFRA. Until next time.